Good morning, Year 10. I hope you're well and having a lovely day. Please could you do the following for your do now. What do you have to do for part B of the poetry question? How many marks is it worth? You have 5 minutes to answer these questions. So, paper 2, section B, poetry. So for part B, you need to write about another poem from your anthology from memory. You have 30 minutes to do this and the question is worth 20 marks. This means you'll have to write from memory about a poem. Examiners will expect you to have about 4 to 6 quotations in your answer and for you to write approximately 1.5 sides of A4. The question will provide a theme and you can choose which poem you pick. The question they ask you should fit with at least 5 of the 15 poems you've studied to make it fair to you. So this means if there is 1 or 2 poems that you're not especially keen on, whilst I would advise, if you could, learning quotes from every poem, if there's 1 or 2 that you don't do, that should be fine because, like I said, the question should work for about 5 of them. Even if it's 4 and you've missed out 2, it shouldn't be an issue. So please could you write the title, Part B Poetry Planning, and make sure you've written the date as well. Okay, so what needs to be included in this answer? So it's worth 20 marks, and you should write about 1.5 pages and aim to include a minimum of 6 to 8 quotes from an appropriate poem. You need to analyse language, structure and form, including one-word analysis. You also need to include terminology and consider the impact on the reader. So, task 1. Explore another poem from your anthology which expresses longing and desire. I'd like you to imagine this is your exam question. Write down as many poems as you can, which you might be able to use to answer this question. Then highlight or underline the poem that you would choose. You have 10 minutes to do this. I would like you first to try to do it from memory, and then after that you can flick back through your books to look at the various poems. So pause the video for 10 minutes to do this now. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is consider which poem to pick. So we're considering poems that explore longing and desire. So desire is talking about a deep yearning for something. So it's not just wanting something, it's a really deep, deeply embedded desire. So some poems you may have chosen to explore desire are A Song, Bright Star, A Broken Appointment, Warming Her Pearls and Dusting the Phone. In terms of longing, that's someone or something that you wish for. So poems which explore longing, Now, I Wouldn't Thank You for a Valentine, Warming Her Pearls and Dusting the Phone. So this leaves us with 2 options, Warming Her Pearls and Dusting the Phone. So what we're going to do, since we have 2 poems which enable us to answer the question, we're going to go through each of them in turn, but we're going to start with Warming Her Pearls because you know I'm very partial to that poem, and it's a poet. Okay, so exploring another poem which expresses longing and desire. Warming Her Pearls is a dramatic monologue expressing an obsessional desire and a forbidden longing. So for your next task, what I'd like you to do is go through the poem and write down 6 quotations you would use for it if you were answering this essay question. Highlight the words you would focus on and make brief notes. So I'm going to attach Warming Her Pearls to this lesson, and you can print that out again, or you can go back and use the one that you've already got stuck in your book. But I think it'd be easier when it comes to revision if you print out a fresh copy and annotate it once more. So pause the video for 10 minutes to do this now. So we've got a focus on the senses, touch. Next to my own skin, mistress implies a power divide and perhaps explains the longing for a better life. The poem begins in the morning, suggesting the intensity of her feelings. All day I think of her. So again, you've got this desire and longing that isn't just fleeting or transient, it's deeply embedded and it lasts from the time she gets up to the time she goes to bed, or even after she goes to bed, because of course we know she lies in bed at night dreaming about her and burning for the pearls. So you've got silk or taffeta, rich materials, again focused on the senses. Rich gown tonight suggests she doesn't have to worry about anything else and perhaps desires her mistress's lifestyle. The pearls do not sit well on her, slack. They are made for her mistress, emphasises the distance between them and the longing. She will dance with men all night, but her mistress will always be carrying a part of her in her milky stones, potentially admiration or jealousy, a longing to have that lifestyle. So a lot of you seem to think there's a great amount of envy in terms of class, which you could of course argue. I would say it's more of a romantic longing, but of course it could be both. And like I dream about her, infatuation, obsession, clearly a physical desire to be closer to her. So you've got watch the soft blush seep through her skin, pays very close attention to her mistress, again, physical desire and longing. In her looking glass, the maid wants to speak, could be imagining her life as this person or her life with this person. Her role is restricted, a desire to overcome her current role and be close to the mistress in some way. Voyeuristic imagery, very intimate, shows that physical desire again. Enjambment, reinforcing the fact that this is imaginary, not real, like she would wish it to be. And poem closes at night, showing a contrast from the beginning and exacerbating this prolonged sense of desire and yearning. Our whole day is constructed and revolves around this deep-seated yearning to either be the mistress, as a lot of you seem to think, or in my opinion, be with her, or maybe it's both. And of course, you've got the contrast between the cooling pearls and the heat of desire. I burn. And this contrast is emphasized through the placement in the poem. So the last line of a poem is always significant, as is the first. And so you could argue that by having that final sentence and that final word as burn shows that passion and potentially intense envy. Okay, so now let's look at dusting the phone. So dusting the phone features a strong personal voice which discusses the anguish of separation. For your next task, I would like you to write down 6 quotations you would use for this essay question if you were using dusting the phone to answer it. I'd like you to highlight the words you would focus on and make brief notes. Pause the video for 10 minutes to do this now. Again, you can go back and use a copy you've printed, or I will attach a fresh copy to class charts with which you can use. Okay, so let's go through the poem again. So the speaker knows that the situation is not a good one to be in, but still longs for it anyway, indicating a deep sense of infatuation. You've got repetition of sirens, connotations of emergencies, but also mythical connections. They were dangerous creatures who lured sailors to be shipwrecked. They were desirable to lead them to their destruction. And so you've got that sense of being pulled against yourself to something that you know may not be good for you, but you can't resist because you are so infatuated. You've got a series of metaphors which could suggest a lack of fulfillment in her relationship. What she desires is a marriage and a full house. You've got imagined images of the future. Instead, she has one night per week in a stranger's white sheets. So that sense of loss, yearning for something that she doesn't have. You've got over-analysing the situation, longing for something different. You've got hyperbole, an exaggeration of assault, emphasises the self-mocking tone. She knows that even though she desires and longs for something different, she is stuck in a situation she has no control over, and this reveals her desperation and yearning for something else. So you've also got a comical image here. She knows the absurdity of her dependency and cannot stop herself longing for it, again reflecting desperation. You've got the personification of lonely cotton sheets, emphasizing the anguish she's experiencing. She longs for intimacy. Instead, she is simply sitting by the telephone, imagining the life she could have, the life she wants, but she doesn't have. There's no consistent rhyme scheme which mirrors the speaker's own inconsistent thoughts. One anxiety is replaced by another, in increasing frustration. Trapped implies there is no escape from her infatuation. And the last single line emphasizes or captures the longing she has for answers and communication. She is desperate to hear from her lover, which you can tell through the really staccato effect of this broken up sentence. Come on, damn you, ring me, or else what? So really broken up, reveals her kind of fractured mindset and the fact that she is so anxious about what's happening, and she's so desperate to kind of get a sense of closure or to get closer to, ideally, to this the love interest. So please make sure you've picked out at least three, 4 to 6 quotes that you could analyse in more detail in response to the question. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is create a plan to respond to the question. You should consider your overall argument and what ties all your ideas together. You can use this plan in your timed essay tomorrow. You have 10 minutes to do this. Okay, so if you've got some extra time, I'd like you to use the attached poetry grid to create a list of your own Part B questions and create short plans to aid your revision. And I would like you to work on this until the end of the lesson. So pause the video and do that now. Okay, so we have now reached the end of the lesson, so hopefully you have a better understanding of what Part B is all about. Arguably, I would say this is the more fun part, because you have a bit of ownership over what poem you choose, whereas the first one, it's a bit harder because you've got the unknown poem, and the poem that's given to you may not be one that you're particularly fond of from the anthology, though hopefully you love all of them. I don't, but hopefully it's one you like, but then you do have the difficulty of the unseen poem, whereas with this one, like I said, there should be about 5 poems that you could choose from, so you do have that sense of discretion in choosing a poem you like and hopefully you know really well. Okay, so thank you very much. I look forward to speaking to you tomorrow when you'll be writing your first Part B answer. So very exciting. So thank you very much and speak to you next time.